Welcome into Rounding the Bases Live, presented by Enterprise Bank and Trust. I'm Joel Goldberg. Happy Friday, everyone. We have made it just about to another weekend. I hope that's a positive for everyone as we continue to try to kind of reemerge here a little bit. And I know that it's a different story for everyone, but once again, we just kind of continue to change day by day and week by week. And here's another week that is just about in the books. Big thanks to my friends at Enterprise Bank and Trust. Hashtag no stopping you. Couldn't do this without them. So I appreciate the support. And also up in Weston, Missouri, KC Cattle Company, veteran owned and operated, delivering to all 50 states. And they'll take it right down here to Kansas City too. Wagyu beef, led by former Army Ranger Patrick Montgomery. I should recommend and continue to recommend the bacon cheeseburger bratwurst. It's kind of consistent with my diet right now. What the heck, we're in a pandemic. Their hot dogs are award-winning, and of course their steaks and their ground beef. Everything is spectacular. So check them out at kccattlecompany.com or on their social media at KC Cattle Company. One of the things that I've really enjoyed about this show, first and foremost, is the storytelling aspect of it. I consider myself a storyteller, not just a baseball storyteller. Actually spent an hour on a call, or not a call, but a webinar this morning doing a virtual presentation for the business networking group ACG in Kansas City. So it was really awesome to have over 100 people there and to be able to share different messages of navigating this coronavirus. So that's one end of things. And of course, I'll put in the little plug. I don't do this a whole lot, but reach on out to me on LinkedIn, or you can certainly find me on my website if you're interested in a virtual speech. But really what, for me, one of my purposes right now is this podcast and just trying to be able to share different stories, different perspectives, and to be able to just chip in that voice with the access that we really all have to social media, and being the Royals guy and having a following because of what the Royals have done enables me to share some of these stories beyond baseball. And so some of them are inspirational, some of them are strategic, and some of them, and in this case, I think it'll be a combination of all, are just really important for our community right now. So I want to bring in to the show Judy Temaat, who is the president of KC Kansas Angels. And this is, well, first off, Judy, happy Friday, and thanks for joining me today.
Thank you. Thank you very much
Friday.
For asking me to be. Yeah, I know. Woo! Friday.
It's a good thing. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know if we're past the whole, like, well, what's the difference between Saturday and Sunday or Friday? Yeah. But at least it feels like maybe there's an excuse for everyone that's out there grinding to slow down. I will say that, right. And I feel a little bit bad. I had somebody reach out to me on LinkedIn and asked if I could come on some type of virtual thing tonight, like at 8 or 9, for some event. Wow. And I just said, I'm actually trying to be a little better with no. I don't know if it's a good or bad quality, but it's like, I need, like come 5 o'clock today,
downtime.
I gotta be done downtime for a little bit.
That's really important. And I think it's been one of the work from home challenges that a lot of us face is, when do I cut it off? When, it's nice to be able to work from home in some aspects, but we all have to have that line that we draw and say, okay, work is done. Now I have my personal time. So that's really important.
We get messages sometimes. When I say we, I mean me and my guest or guest. I'm used to having a co-host in baseball. It's just me here in a closet. But I if we're being completely honest, I already have one message in. I don't know if you've heard of this lady before or not, but of course you have. Oh wait, I don't know how well you can. If you could see that, that's from Jennifer Dehan. Okay. And she said, I know, like, when we were setting up before, you were putting on the glasses, so I'm like, all right, now I'm forcing you to do that. So now Jennifer just said congrats on the ACG gig. I'm sure it went great. The reason why I popped that up, thank you, Jennifer. She could have texted me too, but we got the message out there. No, the reason why I did that was because she's the one that introduced us, and she said, I've got this friend Judy, and you're not going to know how to pronounce her last name. Yeah. I don't know if she said that or not. But she said, you got to meet her. She's involved in an amazing organization. So I did want to give, as I often do on this podcast, the shout out to the person that has introduced us. And by the way, she just sent another one in. I'll read it. It says, hi, Judy and Joel, all caps. Judy,
There you go.
I'm getting a little bit loopy here on this Friday, and
That's
I
funny.
had this really serious topic that I want to talk about, which we will right now. So, and it could go wherever it goes. But you and I talked maybe a few weeks ago,
Hmm.
and I've always known that there is a crisis in terms of
There
foster
it
care.
is.
I was
Hmm.
introduced to that at a fairly early age in one of my early TV jobs. There was a football coach when I worked in St. Louis for the St. Louis Rams, pretty high profile, not the head coach.
Uh-huh.
And they had two kids that were teenagers, and then they had adopted a boy that they first had in foster care,
Okay.
who I'm sure at this point has gone on and graduated college and on and on and on. I mean, he was their third child, and it was a beautiful success story. But that was really one of my early introductions to foster care. And what
Okay.
really struck me was when you started giving me some of those numbers
Yes.
and how often these kids move around.
Right.
So, you know what, I'll start there and then we'll ask about the organization because I just want to
Right.
kind of catch people's attention. Most of us, if we're lucky enough, we grow up in one household in one
Hmm.
place and that's it.
Right.
That's not the case for a lot of kids, right?
That's true. And Joel, that's one of the things that first really it got my attention was the statistics. And when I heard those statistics, my heart broke. And we talked about this. The average child in care moves 7 times in 2 years. And I'll say that again, 7 times in 2 years. When I was a kid, we moved one time. I remember we moved from the farmhouse that I was born in to the farmhouse that my dad was raised in and that I ended up, growing up in until I was 18. I was 5. I don't remember much about it, but I remember, moving is a big deal. So take that times 7 every 2 years. And that it's just crazy when you think about it. And a lot of those times, those moves come at very awkward and uncomfortable times in those kids' lives. They are awoken in the middle of the night and said, grab what you need. And they have literally minutes to grab their personal belongings and go. And maybe they get a trash bag to put those items in, and then they're taken away and moved into a foster home. And that can happen, like we said, 7 times in 2 years. That's very traumatic. And every time those kids move, it puts them back about 6 months in their development. So think about that. It's 7 new mommies and daddies, 7 new brothers and sisters, 7 new sets of teachers at school, 7 new sets of friends, if they're able to make new friends in their new community and their new school. So you're right, that is very traumatic. And so one of our main core principles is to try to keep kids in the home. So another startling statistic was that 50% of the families that open their homes to foster care close within the first year.
Mm.
And so, if mom and dad say, hey, this is not what I thought I signed up for, and then they close their home, that could cause that child to have to move. So we provide wraparound support to those families and to those children in care. And our goal is to try to help those foster homes stay open so that those kiddos can stay in that house and not have to move 7 times in 2 years.
So those are the numbers that I wanted to discuss with you right away, just to hopefully
Hmm.
catch people's attention. We all
Right.
kind of can get wrapped up in our own worlds, but I love the way you put that too. We moved twice. I think maybe around 5 years old and
Yeah.
13, and I don't want to say it was traumatic. It was just it's a lot. I mean, put it in
Yeah.
terms of an adult. I mean, how stressful is it
Hmm.
as an adult if you have to pick up and move? So
Right.
that's as someone that's more mature. Now we sit there and we talk about a young child who is doing it on a regular basis. I can't
Correct.
imagine the fear. And we hear so many of the success stories, like I mentioned, the one about somebody ultimately adopting. That's not
Hmm.
often the case. Before we get further with that, let's talk a little bit about Casey Kansas
Hmm.
Angels. It's the organization
Sure.
that you're president of. And this is something that's still a little bit on the newer side, at least
Right.
here in our area, not necessarily nationally. So tell me about
Hmm.
the organization and how you stumbled upon it.
Sure. Well, like I said, I actually heard about Austin Angels, which was the founding chapter, if you will. The founder, Susan Ramirez, started her chapter in Austin in about 2010. She heard about the statistics at a local event and decided we can do better. We need to make a difference for these kids. So she started the organization, and then she started getting some attention. Ironically, I heard about her on a podcast. From one of my favorite people, Jen Hatmaker, had a podcast and interviewed Susan. And that's where I heard these statistics, and that's what got my attention right away. And so I started kind of looking into it and started, thinking about how can I do this? How can I do this? And I contacted Susan in, I'll get the year wrong, May of 2018, and said, I really want to do this in Kansas City. I didn't think there was a foster crisis in my neighborhood until I started doing some research. And I quickly realized that in the Kansas City metro area, just on the Kansas side, there are about 2,000 kids in care, 2,000 kids in foster care. And so I thought, wow, I like Susan, I can do better. I can do something to make a difference in these kids' lives. So I contacted her, and she told me what it would take to start a chapter. And it's a lot. I mean, I became, to be completely honest, I became a little overwhelmed and just started kind of praying and resonating on how can I make this happen? What can I do? And about 5 months later, Susan emailed me and said, hey, Judy, here are some other women in your area that want to do this. And so I contacted these women and said, hey, my name's Judy. I, contacted Susan in May to do this, and I hear you want to do this. Let's get together and see what we can do. So we got together at Panera Bread and literally knew each other for about 5 minutes and decided that we were going to take on this challenge and start our chapter here in Kansas, in the KC metro area. So those women they're my warriors, they're my heroes. They came alongside me. We had a fundraising process that we went through, and then we launched our chapter in July of 2019. So yes, we are very new into the process. National Angels was born out of Susan's dream to do this nationally. She started National Angel. She had people come to her and say, hey, we see you're doing great things in Austin. We want to do this in Dallas. We want to do this in Amarillo. We want to do this in Iowa. We want to do this in Seattle. So we now have about 22 chapters nationally. And we're serving kids all over the country. And our goal is to change the way that parents and children experience foster care. So nationally, there's about 430,000 kids in care on the daily basis. And if you think about this, I was thinking about how many people fit into Kaufman? About 40,000?
Oh, yeah, about 40. Yeah, about that.
Okay. So take that times 10. If you want to put kind of a number to it, actually, it's almost times 11. That's how many kids are in care on a daily basis in the United States.
Yeah, or we could say you could go that route. I don't know which one seems bigger. They'll both be big, or you could take, say, half of the people that were at that Royals championship parade,
right,
and say that's all the kids nationally. I mean, it was 800. It's a
Yeah.
lot. It's a
lot.
huge number. You talked about your warriors, so I figured I would pop this up here because I like to play with technology. But I'm guessing that these are some of the folks that you were talking about, and
that's my board.
Yeah, this is the and so I see here May is National
Yes, it is.
Foster Care Month. So the timing, obviously, of having you on is really good. Although I think that we could certainly do this any month and have the same impact. What I want to ask you is how things change, better or I assume worse, with this pandemic. Because look, for any of us out there right now that are parents, you don't even have to be a parent. I mean, if you're single, if you're married, engaged, whatever it is, don't have kids, shoot, your pets are thinking this is all different. We're all, I keep saying this, we're all going through something here. But, if you have kids, whether you're homeschooling them, whether they're older and like mine as teenagers, probably still sleeping right now, I don't know. This is stressful.
It is stressful
for everyone. So what does it look like for foster care kids?
Yeah, it's really changed the trajectory of everything that you're doing. We recently had a session with some local foster moms and just sat down and had, everything's virtual. So it was a Zoom call. One of the first things they told me was the Zoom calls. The kids are constantly on Zoom calls because everything they're doing is virtual now. So school, number one, which, most people have school and it's virtual. And I've heard from some parents who, just with their biological children, all the Zoom calls are just overwhelming. But now look at this from a foster parent's perspective. They now have case manager visits that are virtual. We had a mom tell us she had to literally walk through the house with her iPad and show her case manager everything in her house to make sure that it was all up to speed. Case manager visits with the kids are virtual. Visits with the biological parents are now virtual, which is putting an additional strain on the kids, the parents, and the foster parents. It's just everything is changing in that respect. They're not getting their me time. That's one of the biggest things they said. I'm really struggling as a parent because I work outside the home. My kids normally go to school, and I have a 20-minute commute where it's my me time. I listen to a podcast, I listen to music, I listen to, whatever inspires me. And they don't have that time right now. They don't have any kind of a break from their kids. Shopping is just really challenging for them. It's getting better, but initially, we have parents that are in some really rural areas. They say, so we can't get to the store. And when we do get to the store, there's nothing on the shelves. Or a lot of my foster mamas they'll do order pickup, and they'll order 10 things and get there and there's only 3 things in the basket. And it was, it's challenging. So that's a lot of it. It's really putting a lot of pressure on the kids. A lot of these kids come with trauma. They've experienced trauma. They've seen trauma. It's a very traumatic experience for them. And I had a foster mama 2 weeks ago. We went and Jennifer helped me do some food deliveries. And she told us some things that a little precious 8-year-old girl was going through. And it was, they're grown up things. And the thing that she said to me that resonated so clearly was this little 8-year-old girl went from being the adult in her family to being a child in her foster family. And that transition has been really hard for her. And just trying to make that change. And no 8-year-old child should have to be in that situation. But that's the reality of what she's dealing with.
Let's stick with that thought for a second, because anyone that's watching, and I think that any foster care parents, if they were to be watching, they hopefully have some of these resources and know the answers. But I'm just curious. I mean, we so often think about that child, whether that be in foster care or in a tough situation, whatever it is, having to step up and show a maturity and have responsibilities that some of us are still trying to figure out at our age right now. But I never really thought about it going the other direction. So what's the best approach for a foster parent or even just anyone that's coming into contact with a kid like that, where I think we want to put our arm around them, if not literally, figuratively at this point, and say, hey, I want to treat you like a kid.
Right.
But that might not be totally comfortable.
Yeah. And that's, you just hit the nail on the head. Our Love Box program is intended to do exactly that. So we will match our Love Box program. It's intentional giving, relationship building, and mentorship. That's the number one goal of our program. And so we will match a volunteer with a child in care and, make sure they have similar interests. If, the child is interested in baseball, for example, you would be a great mentor for them. So we would find common interests and match those kids up with those volunteers. So our Love Box leaders show up on a monthly basis, and they provide intentional things that the kids and the family need. So, we'll have a needs assessment with the mama and daddy, and the kid will involve the child as well, and say, okay, what is meaningful to you? What is going to help you the most be successful in this situation? And that looks different for every child and every family. Some kids need homework help. Some kids need a hug and a note that says you're doing great. Some kids need some physical activity. Some parents need financial assistance. Some parents need emotional assistance. Some parents need you to bring them a meal once a week so that they can take a break. It just depends what they need. And that's what we try to give to them. For my Love Box family, I've been showing up more during this time, and doing porch drop-offs, because we obviously haven't been able to get into the home as much as we would like. But I've been doing porch drop-offs, letters to the mom and kids and saying, hey, you can do this. We can get through hard times. And just checking in with the moms and dads and seeing what they're needing and what they're going through. And so, just trying to match the resources with what they need and fitting it into what means the most for that individual family. So
if I'm understanding it correctly, say for instance the Love Box program, which is one of your programs, I think that the initial thought was, okay, helping get kids into foster care. It's not quite that. It's supporting the foster care families, not just the kid, but maybe the foster care parents, all of it, right?
Right. It is. Our main focus is on the child. So as a Love Box leader, I'm trying to build a relationship with the child that's in the home. And so you make a commitment to that child for a year, and you show up monthly and you build the relationship. We want each child in care to have one healthy adult that knows the color of their eyes and the passions of their heart. And so even if that child maybe goes back to their biological parents, I'll go with them as a Love Box leader. As long as, the biological mom and dad are okay with that, I will go with them and continue to provide support to that child in care and do everything I can do to make that transition successful. Because that's hard too. The goal of foster care is always reunification. The idea of taking the child out of the home is to give the parents the time they need to get their life back on track and do what they need to do to, be responsible parents for these kids. And so the goal is always to get those kids back into the biological home. And so our Love Box program is designed to wrap community around the child in care, as well as biological children in the house and the foster family, and then go to the biological family once that child in care goes back to mom and dad.
And then you also have, along with the Love Box program, the Dare to Dream program.
Yes.
So and Dare to Dream Junior. So tell me about those.
Yeah. So Dare to Dream Junior and Dare to Dream. So initially we started with the Dare to Dream program, which is focused on kids that are 15 to 21. So you're basically focusing on those tough teenage years and trying to help those kids understand what they need to do to be successful in life. So how do you fill out a job application? How do you shake somebody's hand? How do you have a job interview? Look into people's eyes, be respectful. How do you open up a bank account? How do you learn to drive? I went to my to my Love Box family's house the other day, and foster mom was out trying to teach, her 17-year-old child in care to drive. So there's all aspects of that to teach those kids what they need to do to be successful, how to manage money, how to, if they are in that situation, get an apartment, get a job, just do those things that they need to do to age out. And one of the main purposes of Dare to Dream is to help kids know they have options. They can go to a four-year college. Most kids in care will qualify for state tuition. They can go to a trade school. They can go to a branch of the military. So helping them understand and make a plan for what their future is going to look like, just like you do with your kids, Joel.
Sure.
You're trying to lead them in the direction that they need to go. So Austin established the Dare to Dream program, and then they realized, there's kids in that 11 to 15 year age that really need to have some of these experiences as well. So then we launched the Dare to Dream program for the younger kids, and they're very age appropriate. And we have modules that the mentors meet with them. And in Dare to Dream, Our mentors meet with the kids twice a month, and it's more of a one-on-one situation. And again, it's just building that mentorship and relationship and encouraging those kids to, understand what options they have. Going back to the statistics, only about 50% of the kids in care will graduate from high school. And so that is one of our main goals, is helping kids understand you can graduate high school. Another statistic is only about 3% of kids that do graduate high school will go on to college, which is very devastating. We just want kids to understand that they have options and give them the support that they need to be successful.
It's a lot. And I guess my question to you with that, and there's so many other elements too. I mean, we won't even get into all of it, but one of the things I was thinking about as you were talking about the stresses on these kids right now and the foster families, maybe even, not maybe, at a greater level than what all of us are experiencing, and we're all experiencing that stress, is if you think about the challenges, let's say they're used to being able to see their biological families, and now suddenly they're relying on technology.
Right.
Who's to say that the Wi-Fi is good enough on one end?
Absolutely.
Who's to say that the technology is there? And so, you and I could sit here and have this conversation and it works, but that's now making an assumption that they can do that. So in the same way you were talking about, this popped in my head before and then we moved on, but the challenges of going to that grocery store and not have everything and the time constraints, how many challenges are there with that in terms of facilitating some kind of normal?
Right. Yeah, it definitely is. It's been a challenge, I think, for a lot of our parents. And we have some very rural parents in our programs. And what you said, Wi-Fi, she's like, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And so that could be devastating for a child who says, oh gosh, I get to talk to my mom today, and then the Wi-Fi is not working. So, we talk about trauma. That could be very traumatic for that little girl not to be able to see her mom. And then just physically, well, a lot of the stores, I don't think so much anymore, but a lot of the stores put restrictions on who could come into the store. And they basically said kids can't come in. Well, we have a lot of single foster moms. Right. What do? They can't have people come into their house and take care of their kids right now. Online ordering is extremely challenging. It's just put a lot of really big pressure on these families to be able to feed their kids, and they are having to rely on friends or their family, to go to the grocery store and do those types of things for them.
So a couple things as we start to wind it down. One, I've just got another message. I won't pop it up, but from Jennifer, who asked how many foster care children end up in the prison system. And so I want to frame that question in a sense of not look, I think any of the numbers that catch your attention are important. I mean, we started right off the show with how often these kids move, but I do want to frame it a little bit differently too, in terms of steps forward and the progress that you are all making. So I know that for so many of these kids, the odds are stacked up against them. And that's true for those in foster care. That's true for those that maybe never make it to foster care, and they're in situations that the uphill battle is there from almost the day they were born sometimes. And I know that's not fair, and that's a challenge for all of society. But what are some of the goals going forward? Because I think that with what you guys are doing locally and nationally, you can change those numbers. You can start to chop at those numbers.
Yeah, absolutely. And the stat is 80%. 80% of the prison population has spent time in foster care. And that's huge. And one of the things that you're right, we want to keep the kids out of the prison population. 50% of the homeless population spent time in foster care. Kids age out at 18 and they don't get a lot when they age out. In fact, sometimes they get pretty darn close to nothing. And so one of our goals, and you talk about Dare to Dream, is helping these kids understand what it's going to take to make enough money to have an apartment, to buy groceries, to, how important it is to show up to work every day. Our goal is to keep kids out of prison, keep them off the streets, and help them understand what options they have to, like we talked about, go to college, go to trade school, go to a branch of the military, and be a successful, person in our society. Because we can take care of these kids now as a society, or we can take care of them later.
Yeah.
It's that simple. And changing the prison population that was one of, when Susan first started this, she said, I want to change that stat. And I wholeheartedly agree. And a couple of our board members actually have worked in the prison system. Our case manager, Melissa, she worked in the prison system in the Lansing Leavenworth area and worked with moms who had kids in foster care. And that is a big part of why she got involved with our organization. She also had some foster family scenarios in her own personal family that led to that. So, but it's a very big issue that we are definitely trying to change the statistics.
Yeah. Okay, so last two questions for you. The first one on a personal level. I mean, you were moved by this podcast. I don't know if at the time you suddenly realized that you would be helping start and the president of this local chapter.
Right.
But what do you think? What do you think did it? What was that threshold for you where you said, I have to do this? And what have you personally, Judy? I mean, you're giving, but I've been around long enough to understand how this works. You have to be taking from this too, emotionally, mentally. It has to change your perspective on life. So what ultimately got you here, and what have you taken from it?
Yeah. So Jennifer and I were actually at a personal development conference in May of 2018. And because I had heard about Austin Angels, I had heard Susan be on several podcasts, and kind of the theme from that, it was Rachel Hollis. The theme from that was, you are made for more. And it just resonated with me. And I thought about it over and over again. My kids are raised, we have a saying that not everybody's called to foster, not everybody's called to adopt, but we can all do something. I never felt like I was called to be a foster parent. That just seemed, it just seemed like I wouldn't be good at it. But I was always called to fostering for some reason. I don't know why. And so I just, I heard that made for more. And I'm like, I'm going to do this. And so I made the call. And, you talk about what I get out of this. My husband has recently gotten involved with our organization. He's stepped in to be our treasurer. And I'm not going to lie, he was a little hesitant to start because he's like you. He keeps asking me, what is driving you to do this? And it's just like burning in my soul to change. I just want to change the way these kids experience care, because these kids didn't ask for this. They didn't do one thing to have this card be dealt to them. And so I want to do everything I can to change that narrative for them. But my husband, just in getting involved with us, we did a bike delivery. We had a local company do a bike build for us as a cultural event day. And we delivered 3 of those bikes to 3 little kids who have been through so much trauma. It's unbelievable. And we delivered those bikes to those little kids, and the smiles on the faces. And this family has biological children as well. And the biological kids were out there helping the children in care learn to ride the bikes. And it was a sunny, beautiful day. And we left, and my husband said, okay, I get it. It's just that moment when these kids come up to you and say thank you. And guess what? I got this week. I got a thank you card from each one of those kids where they drew a picture. And those are big challenges for these kids, trust me. Because I won't go into their story, but one of these kids was nonverbal when she came into her foster home, and she's speaking now. So her foster mom and dad have made huge strides with her. And she wrote on the card to me, and it was such an impact for us. And he again said, okay, I get it. And so, yes, we get our hearts are so full every time we see this, every time we go into our Love Box family and have our little girl that we're mentoring do a dance for us, or tell us thank you. They just need positive role models in their life, and that's what we get out of this.
Well, I've always said in all types of situations like this and amazing causes and even not necessarily causes. I mean, I talk a lot about having visited the military over in the Middle East and
Mm-hmm.
and how it was all about them, and yet they were turning it around on us, thanking us. And wait a minute, thank you. So I'm sure you get as much out of this as
Yes.
they do, even though that wasn't the intent. It's a great
Mm-hmm.
byproduct of being involved. So the last question, I've got the website up so people can certainly explore, is if anyone's watching right now or they'll be watching later and they want to get involved, what can they do?
They can, sign up to be a Love Box leader. They can sign up to be a Dare to Dream mentor. We have hopefully, hopefully we'll have some non-virtual events later this year.
Yes.
We're hoping to have a 5K and a golf tournament. They can, come to those. We have a cornhole tournament every winter. It's usually right around Super Bowl time. They could play in that. So we're always trying to fundraise. Obviously, we have needs and expenses. We are taking part in today, actually, a program with a bunch of other, some local churches and some other foster organizations to provide suitcases with full of goodies to about 100 graduating seniors. In the Kansas City area. So there's always opportunities. We are always doing call to actions. For example, we did Mother's Day cards where we sent some local foster moms a little card and a gift certificate. We're going to do the same thing for Father's Day, so they could donate to those causes. And like I said, sign up to be a mentor, sign up to be a Love Box leader. And if there's any foster families that see this, please look at our website. We can provide you support. We can provide you we can wrap our arms around you and help you get through this time.
The website is kckansasangels.org. Everything that you could need is on there, and just such an important part of, I think, any community, certainly the Kansas City area, and I think that's probably true anywhere in the country, if not beyond, right?
Right. And that's another thing I would say, Joel. I'm assuming that this reaches beyond the Kansas City area. We are always looking for new chapters. Right now, we have, like I mentioned, Dallas, Amarillo, Little Rock, Cedar Valley, Bakersfield. We're all over the country. And there's also, not to forget, there is a chapter on the Missouri side. Casey Mo Angels, my friend Ann, and a bunch of her people are starting up a chapter on the Missouri side. We do have to stay separate because of the Department of Social Services. We have to stay separate within the two states. We have a unique situation with Kansas City being right in the middle. But if you're on the Missouri side and want to get involved, I would encourage you to reach out to Ann and her team as well.
I'm looking at the website. Well, while we wrap up, I might as well just throw it up there one more time because I have the ability to do that, and it'll
Sure.
at least give people an idea of where. And here we go. So here are some of the the spots. And Judy, we've talked about Austin and Amarillo, but we see Atlanta, Boise. I mean, we're really all across Charlotte, Chicago, Cleveland. And I want to throw this up there just because, and there's KCK and Casey Mo, but that, I mean, all it takes, if anyone's watching right now, and certainly my audience is very Kansas City heavy, but then suddenly somebody knows somebody, and who knows, who the next Judy Temaat is that says, you know what, I'm inspired by this. I want to get started. And I like that last link down there. The last location was, if you're interested, click
Yep.
here. So there are those opportunities. So you guys are doing
Absolutely.
amazing
Thank
work. And I
you.
think that, that is true. And again, here's the website. That's true. That was true before the pandemic. It's even more important now. And, whatever that new normal looks like, this will still be there. And hopefully, day by day, month by month, year by year, you guys are chipping away at some of those numbers
Right.
and putting them in a different direction. And I know that's one of the goals. So
Yep.
I appreciate you sharing everything that's going on with Casey Kansas Angels and the national organization. Keep me and everyone updated on what's going on. I'm happy to help
Absolutely.
promote in any single way. And I'm really glad that you spent the time today, Judy.
Thanks so much, Joel. I appreciate you letting us come on and tell our story.
Yeah, thanks to Jennifer Dehan for
Yes.
connecting us. It is Temaat, or as you said,
Yes.
Jennifer always says, like tomato, no
Tomato,
O at the
tomato.
end. So just remember Temaat. And if you say it wrong, I'm guessing that you will not be the first,
It's
nor will you
okay.
be the last, right?
It's okay.
I like those challenging names though, because
Yeah.
it puts you on the spot a little bit. So, all right,
Yeah.
Judy, have a great weekend. Appreciate you spending the
Great.
time.
Thanks, Joel. We'll see you later.
All right, sounds good. So that is Judy Temaat, and really great information there about the Kansas City, Kansas Angels and helping out the foster care system. It's a great way, a lot of purpose to end this week. Show number 39. That's what that was. So that means episode 40 on Monday, 5 more to come next week. Then we'll shut down for one day on Memorial Day and kick it right back up again. So as always, stay safe. Stay safe, stay healthy. I could say that one. I'm a professional broadcaster. Have a great weekend, everyone. Quick thanks again to Casey Cattle Company. Check out their website. You can buy Wagyu beef, veteran-owned and operated up in Weston, Missouri. They do deliver. And my friends at Enterprise Bank and Trust, #no stopping you. That's going to do it for this episode of Rounding the Bases Live, presented by Enterprise Bank and Trust. Have a great weekend.